former 49er great. Just give me some of your main thoughts about this game Sunday, where you think one team may have an advantage, where the other team may.
Well, I think inconsistency. You got to say that's an advantage for the Niners because Dallas, as good as they've looked on a couple of occasions, that whatever that was they did against the Cardinals was kind of hard to forget. But, they're getting back to strength, especially up front in their offensive line, which I'm sure Dak will appreciate that. It's hard not to look at that offense and not be critical, but kind of be a little skeptical about how they deal with the red zone because they've turned the ball over and or not really come through in that part of the field. And, when you're playing a team that is well balanced as the Niners are, that can come back to haunt you. That can be a real issue.
Randy, let me ask. Sorry about that. Let me ask you about the Niners' defensive line. When the announcement was that Hargrave was coming here, I expected major disruption. They're 4-0. They're not playing bad, the defensive unit. I feel like the offense is ahead of them. Bosa held out. What have you made and seen from the defense as a whole, and mainly the D-line?
Well, yeah, Bosa's preseason's about over now, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
So now would be a good time to sort of blossom for 2023 if you're Bosa. Hargrave, that was a beautiful play last week, that sack he had. That's just pure up the middle, up the gut pressure kind of stuff that makes defensive ends like Bosa extremely happy because it makes inside escape not really an option. And that can be a real issue when you got people that can want the edges. But, have they played their absolute best? No, I don't think so. I think you're going to see a lot better out of them. By the same token, on the offensive side, the passing game isn't exactly clicking up dozens of touchdowns so far. So, I think the balance is admirable. But eventually the passing numbers are going to have to jump up from the touchdown standpoint.
Let me ask you this, Randy, and we're joined by former 49er Randy Cross. I saw a stat the other day where Christian McCaffrey is, of all the 49er touches on offense, he represents 48% of the touches. And it's more than any player in the league, even Derrick Henry. And I heard Jerry Rice on. We had him on earlier, and he said they got to shorten that leash a little bit. As a player, either as a teammate of a player or do you ever think about your workload while you're in the middle of a season? And do you think that's a factor at all?
Well, workload, not ignoring the workload, I think is stupid because that can be a factor for players. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. When you're on a heater, less is usually not better. And from his standpoint, he's on a heater, whether he's running with it or catching it or whatever he's doing with it. His sort of that chemistry he's got going with his offense right now is pretty incredible to see. Is there always an issue that you could have some wear and tear issues for later in the year or an injury or whatnot? That's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the position. So that's just kind of the way that goes in the NFL these days. But I know one thing: when you game plan this football team, that's exactly where you start. You start with 23.
Wow. Hey, Randy, can you share with the listeners and my partner, just what this rivalry means to you and any memories you have of this game that you played in against the Dallas Cowboys?
Well, my memory of the Cowboys starts out kind of negative. Earlier in my career, they beat us like a rented mule. They slapped us around pretty good back-to-back years in Dallas. And I think it's one of the things that made that regular season blowout we put on them at Candlestick in '81 the best. And then following that up with the win in the championship game, because as was pointed out by a few of their players, we hadn't really seen the real Cowboys. Well, we didn't beat the real Cowboys by 3 touchdowns, but we beat them by enough. So, and it made from then on, it was a tough time for Dallas. If you look at their history, it was a slow sort of decline from that spot to where they got, where later in the year or earlier in the next decade, they draft, Troy, and they get Emmett, and they get Michael and whatnot. But it was facing them. They were the standard. They really, really were. Back in those days, they were America's team. Not so much now, but back then they were.
No doubt about it. Randy, I got to ask you, I know you played with Russ Francis for a few years in San Francisco, and he recently passed in a plane crash. He's 70 years old. Tell us what you remember about Russ Francis, because he was a big part of two franchises, the Patriots and the Niners.
Yeah, just a fantastic guy. Just saw him summer before last up in Montana at one of Eddie's gatherings for the 4th of July. He was fit and he was happy, and everything was going great for him. I was really happy for him. Great teammate, great guy. He loved to fly. Anybody that knew him knew that he loved to fly. And one of my lasting memories from him or of him was, and I think it was 88, maybe 87. We were in training camp, and he buzzed the tower. Might have had to be earlier than that, but he buzzed the practice field in his P-51 Mustang.
Oh, so he was doing that even while he was playing. I saw he was avid about that.
Oh yeah, no, he was very, very avid. I mean, he flew he had his biplane he loved. He flew that almost every day, it seemed like. But
wow.
the Mustang, he only broke out on special occasions.
Hey, give me a quick prediction, Randy.
I like the Niners by a touchdown.
Okay.
I think it's in that 30-23, 30-24 kind of window. And probably the whole thing is decided in the fourth quarter by if true to form holds up, then Dak Prescott will throw a red zone interception, and the Niners will win.
Hey, here's a good nugget for you. Both teams have only committed one turnover through 4 games. That's probably why they're doing so well. One of the big reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Randy, thank you so much. We'll be looking forward to watching you on Sunday night.
Whatever you need. Thank you very much.
All right, Randy Cross, former 49er great.